everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coffee Table Conversations. Today, we have a very special guest, Zalissa Johnson, who is a stage manager extraordinaire. She's going to tell us a little bit about her job and a little bit about what she's working on right now. So let's start with that. Zalissa, why don't you say hello and tell us about what you're rehearsing this Saturday?
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Zalissa. I am the production stage manager at the Western Stage, and we start rehearsals for The Wizard of Oz.
So tell us, what's the strategy? What's the plan? How are you going to put a show together without meeting in person?
Well, we are going to be rehearsing on Zoom, right? So all of our rehearsals will look a lot like this right now, what you're seeing right now, with the director sort of taking the lead and then the choreographer teaching dance, either in the main Zoom room or in a separate Zoom room. We also have our musical director who's going to be teaching all of the music online, and we're going to keep it pretty basic. So we're going to work through the scenes. The actors will, do all of their character work. They'll get to know each other. They'll start to form their characters. We'll do some basic blocking, which is one of the things we've had to sort of research new technology and processes for. And then music-wise, we have gotten an app that lets them play rehearsal background music. And so the actors can play that music each individually and sing along to it. So we get things that are syncing up better than if we were trying to play the music on our side of Zoom and having the actors singing synced up to it. So that music is available to all of our staff members and all of our cast members, and it's pretty exciting.
So tell us about your job as stage manager. How is that going to change with rehearsals on Zoom? Is there anything different you have to do, or is it the same type of stuff?
Super funny. We also started rehearsals for Mr. Burns, which is our first or second, I guess, studio production. And we were going through our rehearsal checklist. So stage managers have a rehearsal checklist and a rehearsal report, and we had to start taking things off of it, like turning on and off lights or locking and unlocking doors and setting out rehearsal furniture and props, because none of those things are going to happen in Zoom, right? So we had to put on things on the checklist like open all the tabs on the computer, right? So we probably need our Zoom tab and our attendance tab and, maybe some other paperwork or the music, setting up the music on our phones to play through if we're playing it for the cast. So, it's the same nature of things. It's still preparing a space for the actors to be in, right? So we have to create breakout rooms, let's say one day we're going to be dancing with one part of the cast and singing with another part of the cast. We have to create a breakout room for one of those groups, and that all has to be set up in the computer ahead of time. So, the nature of it is still the same. We're still preparing the space. We're still getting things ready for rehearsal. It's just rehearsal away from you. So I would say the biggest difference that we've had to do prior to the start of rehearsal is find a way that actors are going to regularly receive their information. Normally everybody's right there in front of you. You can hand out flyers, you can, show people things and all of that stuff. And so what we went ahead and did was we created a website using Google for each of the shows, and the actors can go to the website. It has a call board on it. They can see their posted rehearsal calls, which also include their Zoom links to their rehearsals. So they just kind of click on their call board and they are whisked away to rehearsal. I should make them yellow. Follow the yellow Zoom road. I don't know. And so they can see that, they can see their script. We're also using Google Slides to create layouts of the scenery with little Oz people on them, so that when we get around to kind of creating blocking, we can present that blocking on those slides to them so that they can see it, feels a little more real, feels a little more placed. And then when we move to the stage, we, in theory, have maps that show us where the actors go.
I love that.
Yeah. You can, oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, we're going to keep talking about stage management, but what I really want to know is, where are you from? Where did your education start? What brought you to stage management?
It's called Looking for Words.
I've seen that in the archives. I think we
I couldn't remember the name. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was my first show at the Western Stage. And then full time as the stage manager. And then by the beginning of the next season, I was the production stage manager, in charge of the entire department and stage managing all of the main stage productions. So
let's talk about what is the difference between, because you hear people say stage manager and sometimes you hear production stage manager. Is there a difference?
There is a difference. There can be a difference. There's been a lot of conversation on the stage manager internet world at the moment, which there's a lot of because of everyone's ability to Zoom and have free time. It's great. A lot of stage managers are talking to each other. And it just sort of denotes a structure depending on how many people are working on a given production or in a given department. Right. So sometimes on a show, there's an assistant stage manager who's working closely with actors and props and scenery, and they're backstage and they're doing all that stuff. And then sometimes there's another stage manager who's maybe running the rehearsal process, and who will work backstage during the production. And then there's a production stage manager who will sort of handle everything house forward and call the show. In our specific instance at the Western Stage, the production stage manager is more the person who is running and organizing the stage management department. And then usually probably they're the most experienced stage manager on the team. Typically the stage manager for the more complicated productions. And then there'll be other people on the team who are either stage managing main stage productions or studio productions. And then they are also stage managers. And then production assistants are people who are newer to stage management and want to help out and get some experience. So in my instance, I'm sort of the stage manager of The Wizard of Oz, but then the production stage manager of the Western Stage. So I will put together all of the schedules based on the map I get given by John or the artistic director. I will put together paperwork that everyone will use for communications, how to communicate with each other, how to communicate with outside designers and other hired staff. And then I also work to staff the rest of the stage management department with other stage managers and assistant stage managers. And then sometimes depending on how many full-time staff people there are in various departments of the theater, the production stage manager might also be working to find the crew members to work backstage or spotlight operators and things like that, which is a lot of fun. So I love working backstage. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so the stage manager really has a hand in every single aspect of a show, from the creative team to the actors to the crew. So that's a really big job. Do you find it stressful? Do you find it difficult, or is it a thrill for you?
I really like running around and doing things to get people to communicate and connect and things. And so, typically in a theater, I can just walk around. I can spend, a half an hour in the day, and I can walk over to the makeup area and you know, check in with them. What do they need? What can I do? You know, what are you up to? And then I can walk over to the scene shop and the prop department, and then over to costumes, you know, and I can have all those conversations, and then I can connect the people who need to talk. Right now it's very different because we're on Zoom. Most of the time we're not having any one-on-one connections. So there have been, you know, there've been a lot of meetings. Sometimes it's just meetings with a couple of people on the production team. We have one later today with the directors and the musical director to sort of plan for Saturday. What's our agenda going to be? Who's going to talk? Who's going to do what? So, you know, right now it's a lot of little connecting on Zoom and then putting those people together, which is essentially the same thing. It takes a lot longer. Everything takes longer right now. It's so strange.
Well, we've got time, they say. I don't know. Some of us do. So I'm sure somebody's watching this right now and getting really excited and thinking, you know what, that sounds like me. I could be a stage manager. I want to give it a try. What can somebody do if they're interested in this type of work as a full-time or even just a volunteer dabbling kind of thing?
Okay. So, you know, the type of person who wants to be a stage manager is usually somebody who like really enjoys a good trip to Office Max, right? You're picking out a binder. Oh, can you see it? This is my sparkly green Oz binder, right?
Ooh.
Very excited about it. I've got some little like stick-on tabs. I'm gonna go hole punch later because I don't have a hole punch at home. I might have to fix that. Right. So, you know, you're going to enjoy a good trip to Office Max. You know, you probably have always been very serious about your daily planner. You like to write stuff down. You make lists. You like to make phone calls and text people, make sure they're, you know, doing what needs to get done. You know, but you also like talking to people and finding out what they need and listening to what's going on and solving problems. Basically, it's you know, looking for and solving the problems that nobody else ever saw coming. So, you know, a great way to get involved in stage management, particularly at the Western Stage, is we just wrapped up our first round of our stage management workshop. There are about 3 to 6 of us just exploring the basic topics and paperwork that go into stage management, you know, the type of problem solving that goes into communicating with your staff, getting everyone where they need to be, how to write a rehearsal call, you know, how to have meetings with people that are productive, maybe when things are even getting a little difficult and intense, like how do we get all those people to communicate and still be productive together. And then sort of how do we change things in our new, you know, pandemic Zoom rehearsal environment, right? So we came up with a bunch of new paperwork things like we talked earlier yesterday even. Some of us are still working together because they are the stage managers for the Burns production. You know, and we're still editing our paperwork. We're still figuring that out. So we will be holding another round of our stage management workshop, probably later this fall, details to follow. But we're really excited because the first group was kind of just about figuring it out. And with this next group, I think we'll be able to dive a little bit deeper. All right. So a lot goes into the production before the show. It is actually the bulk of the work comes before the lights come on and there's an audience. But my favorite part, and I would probably venture to say most people's favorite part of working on a production, is when the show actually starts and there's an audience and we're up and going. So the stage manager at that point is responsible for timing out and executing almost everything that the audience sees on stage. right? So every time the lights change on stage, every time there's a sound effect, every time the scenery moves, the stage manager is giving directions to the people who are in charge of those elements as to when to go. So I think the best example of what a stage manager is doing to kind of blend all the elements of a show together at once is the example of maybe thunder and lightning, right? So you have a sound person who is running the sound cues and the sound effects, and you have a light person who is making the lights change or flash. And we want the lights and the sound to go at the same time. So the stage manager has all of those things written in their script, and when it's time for the lightning and thunder to go, the stage manager tells those operators, lights and sound together, go. And then they take that cue, or like, let's say we wanted to make sure that the lightning came and the thunder was 5 seconds later, the stage manager would tell the lights to go, and then sound go, maybe indicating that the storm is now further away. So, you know, you don't want scenery to move when the wrong lights are on, or sometimes scenery is supposed to be moving in the dark. So the stage manager would tell the lights to go dark. And then as soon as it was dark, the stage manager would tell the scenery to move. And so you combine all those elements together. Sometimes there are like 700 of them happening at once. I remember one of the most challenging shows to call cue-wise was probably Tommy. The opening sequence of Tommy is all music with no lyrics or talking of any kind. And I only somewhat read music. Like, I can follow along. I know where notes go. I used to play some piano, right? So I had to take the entire first scene of the show out of the score. It's literally music notes in front of me. And I had to cue the lights and sound effects and people flying and flashing and all kinds of things, purely just from the music. And I had points in my script between cues where it told me to breathe. Sort of like a singer does, because the cues were coming so fast and so specifically that if I breathed in the wrong place, something wasn't going to happen at the right time. And designers do a great job of, when things are coming very, very fast, you know, designers will link cues together. So there might be 10 cues and I only called one of them, you know, and it sort of sets off a whole reaction. But this was an instance where there were literally so many different elements occurring at one time. I think between lights and sound and projections and fly lines and scenery.
And did the floor light up? Did you have to call cues for the floor lighting up?
I'm sure I did. You know, a lot of that, or I know specifically like most fog or smoke effects. Our lighting designer on the main stage, most of the time, Derek, he's typically building that into the light cues, and I don't even always know every single element that is attached to every single cue that I call. I know what the end result's going to be. I'm going to notice if something is wrong, which kind of leads me to the next point of what the stage manager does during the production of a show is, you know, after opening night, maybe after opening weekend, everybody else goes away. The director typically goes away, doesn't always come back. Choreographers like to come back. Choreographers will come watch the show like every night and be like, this. You know, your lighting designer goes away, your sound designer goes away. And now the person who's responsible for the artistic integrity of everything that's going on and keeping it well-timed, well-blended together. The actors are still performing the show that they were directed to perform. You know, I'm observing all of that in addition to probably taking notes for anything that breaks on stage, anything that goes wrong, what time we started, what time it ended. I'm taking notes on all of that, as well as calling the lights and the sound and the scenery. So I think I have the best seat in the house. Balcony, like 4th row. It's fantastic. I can see everything. And for the last probably several years that I've been stage managing, I like to call the show standing up. I don't sit down anymore. I think I have a better view, and it just kind of keeps me like more in the action.
So if something does go terribly wrong, something unexpected, how does a stage manager communicate with the people on stage to fix whatever happened?
So I think the most important part of that question is what we do to communicate, because the last thing that the stage manager can do is leave. We are, 50 yards away? I don't know how far that is, right? And couple floors up. So we can't do anything about anything that has gone wrong on stage, and we can't start yelling. If any of those things are happening, you just might as well stop and ask the audience to go outside for a little while, right? So, the first part about communication that's important is most of the time the stage manager is the only person talking on headset. If someone else is talking on headset, they're communicating to us about a problem that we might not see. So if we start communicating something that is other than directly about the cues that people are supposed to be getting ready for, they're already gonna start paying attention pretty quickly, and we're gonna try to be direct. We're gonna use as few words as possible, right? Because the problem has to get fixed. We're gonna start with, Heather, can you hear me? There's a problem, right? So yeah, or there's an emergency. Kind of depends on what's going on stage, but we don't want to create panic. And our, the biggest rule of thumb that I follow, I think I learned from John Slover. If you're wheeling the platform out on stage and the wheels break, you can't worry about fixing the wheels. The wheels aren't important. The furniture is important, right? So when anything goes terribly wrong that isn't dangerous or show-stopping, after you've made that decision, right? Okay, we can go on. No one's in danger. No one's hurt, right? Then I think the question you ask yourself is, where are we trying to be? We're trying to be in the scene, in the living room, with the lights on and the actors going. That's where we're trying to be. So we're gonna ditch the broken platform, and we're just gonna carry the couch on stage, and we're gonna move on. And probably, if you're able to make decisions quickly and quietly enough, the audience may never even know anything went wrong. A great example of when the audience did know when things went wrong, I think, was Annie. It's one of my favorite examples. Were you in Annie?
Yes, I was.
Yes,
and I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Yes, I was a servant.
Yeah, you were a maid and a Skid Row person.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Yeah.
I think I know exactly the story you're going to tell, because it's a great story.
It's a great story. You can't hide things that go wrong on stage. It's impossible. You drop a paper on stage and the audience is like, that's now the only thing they're looking at is this paper on stage. So, the best thing to do when things go terribly wrong on stage is to acknowledge it, celebrate it if necessary, fix it, and move on. So in the production of Annie, we were in Miss Hannigan's office, and there was a lot of orphans on stage surrounding all of the scenery, which was just one platform that was standing completely of its own power on stage. So when Mr. Bundles was taking Annie out in the cart, when she sneaks out of the orphanage at the beginning, he hit the platform with the side of the cart, and the entire platform, it either fell backwards or fell forwards. I'm gonna be honest, I think I've blocked it out, because there were children everywhere. And it didn't hit a single one of them. And so it was amazing. And then 3 actors, I very believe one of them was your dad, maybe, ran out on, it was the 3 actors who were in charge of that platform. And they just, Miss Hannigan yelled earthquake, which I don't think are super typical in New York. Hi, Dawn.
What a brilliant cover.
Right? And the actors just walked out on stage and they set it back up and they walked away. And the audience was just, I think, too stunned to even process what had just happened. And then the next time Miss Hannigan came out on stage, she got a standing ovation. So yeah, so that one, and then the time when, one time the orphans were dancing off stage after Hard Knock Life. And there was a window above them, like on a fly line. And I called it to be moved up out of the stage, and it started moving down instead. And so I had to quickly and quietly try to communicate to the person who was executing this somewhat intense physical task and having a hard time hearing me, that they were moving the window down, not up. And that was an example where if it hadn't stopped, I might have had to yell and stop the show, because the orphans didn't know the window was coming towards them, and the person doing it was having a hard time hearing me.
So speaking of working with children, what is it like stage managing a show? How is it different when you have to work with children and or animals such as an Annie, which you have done?
Or the Wizard of Oz.
That's right. So tell me, what do you anticipate? What's different when you have to work with children on stage?
I think when you have to work with children on stage, one of the biggest things is you typically have a shorter time period. We rehearse well into the later evenings. And so, you usually only have probably half of your rehearsal time to work with your younger actors. They're probably more new, both to theater and to acting in general. So, we're also at the Western Stage, not only are you in a show, but we're kind of leading you through the process of how to be in a show. We work with new people all the time, so it's fantastic. And then we see them grow up and interview you and things like that. Yes, shorter rehearsal period. There's also usually like a lot, well, usually when we have children, we probably have a large group of children. So, keeping everybody focused, they have to get signed out at the end of the night, legal stuff like that. But right now, what's super funny is the kids are sort of the ones who are going to have this process down better than most of the adults, because we're moving into this virtual rehearsal platform. So we're leading some tutorials right now, last night and tonight, on how to use Zoom and how to, access our stage management website and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure that most of the kids just pretty much already have it on lock. So they're kind of going to be our backbone of stability for Zoom rehearsal.
Yeah, they're going to be your IT support. Yep. Zalissa, I know that you came to the Western Stage in the 90s and you're here again, but there was an interval of several years where you left stage managing and came back. Tell us about tell us about that, and tell us why you came back to stage management.
So my last full-time production at the Western Stage, I believe, would have been 2006. So like 99 to 2006, 2007 at the latest. But so I left stage managing full-time to work for Starbucks. And so a lot of people in the community know me from my roughly 17 years of serving them coffee from various locations around Salinas. So I started there just sort of as a part-time job, but I was able to, when I was ready, I was able to sort of move up through it. And I spent the last 12 years, I think, managing stores all over Salinas. So, what's great about stage management, specifically, and I think theater in general, is, you build a lot of skills that can be used in other places. So obviously stage management is people management and people care and paperwork and writing schedules and Post-its and laminating. I love a good laminator. You know, other people management, corporate people management, retail, any of that kind of thing, you know, it requires all of those same skills and all of those same sort of self motivating characteristics, I guess. So a lot of those things are transferred over to other places. So every 3 or 4 years, I would just come do a show. So the first one I did was, well, actually the first time was because a stage manager had to be gone for a weekend of tech, and they gave me, yeah, something happened, I don't know. And they gave me a call and they said, you know, we need somebody to come like do the first couple of days of tech for the show. And I'm like, that's exciting. Okay, like that. All right. So, you know, I met with that stage manager, and they kind of gave me an idea of how they wanted notes taken and things like that, because the stage manager's script and the notes we take, you know, we can teach it, we can show it to you, we can create a key for you to use it if you have to, but they're all pretty personally specific. You know, it's like reading through someone's journal or, you know, notes and having any idea of how they were trying to organize this. So, you know, I got some of that information from her, and I did those couple of days, and it was really exciting. It had been a long time at that point. So then a couple years later, I think, or a year later, I came back and I did West Side Story, and that was a lot of fun. I stage managed it, only coming to rehearsal 2 or 3 days a week. Thank you, Katie. Katie was my assistant stage manager / kind of like the rehearsal stage manager. So again, that's kind of an example of how our titles change. And that's hard. It's hard to stage manage a show, only coming to rehearsal a couple days a week. I was like, who's a shark? Who's a jet? Who's that one? And Katie really had that all under control. And then I just got to call the show, which was fun and beautiful. I've been with Starbucks for like 17 years at this point, and we get the chance to take a sabbatical, a year-long, what's called a coffee break. And yeah, it's called a coffee break. And I had some other things going on, and the whole universe kind of seemed to be pointing in the right direction. Like, hey, yeah, take your coffee break now. Go do live theater. So that's sort of what I prepared for and what I prepared my family for. A whole lot of not seeing me for like 9 months. They've gotten the opposite. The opposite is happening. I'm 24/7. So yeah, that was kind of my journey back. And, you know, it was really hard at the beginning. It was like, this is what we were supposed to be doing. We were supposed to be doing these shows, and this is what I took the time off for. But it's been really useful in other ways. And I think, you know, in the little time we were able to be together in the theater prior to the lockdown or shutdown or whatever we call it, you know, we had started to talk a lot more about going digital with a lot of the paperwork that stage managers deal with. We deal in volumes and volumes of paperwork. By the time Oz is done, it'll probably be at least this binder and another one just as thick. You know, so how can we cut down on some of that? Some of the things we print out and run around and handing out to everybody, could we handle any more of this digitally, given the advances in, you know, a lot of the Google Docs and other programs and things that we have. And so what's kind of great is now we have to go digital. I'm not printing a rehearsal report for my designers. I'm typing it and I'm placing it on the website we made. So this is kind of forced forward a bunch of the innovations that Amy Cruz Ortiz, the other stage manager for our studio shows, we were kind of looking forward towards some of these innovations anyway. So
that's pretty cool. So, Alyssa, with all of this rehearsing online, does that mean that we're going to be live streaming or creating online content for our repertory season?
So no, the plan for now is for us to rehearse each of our shows. We have 6 planned for the season. Rehearse each of our shows for about 5.5 to 6 weeks online. So the ones that are going right now are rehearsing starting this week until the end of October. And then we'll start the next round of rehearsals online after the holidays. And then as soon as it is safe and we are able to be together, the shows will go into rehearsal one at a time, because our greatest hope is that we will be able to produce these shows live on stage. We don't know what exactly that's going to look like. We don't know when it's going to be, but we're gonna cross our fingers and try to hold out until then.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this chat, and we look forward to our next coffee table conversation. Until then, stay healthy.
We were talking about tech in our stage management workshop, and I'm like talking about something, I don't even know what I was saying, and right in the middle, I just kind of stopped, and I was like, guys, I hope we have tech.
Oh, I know, this is wild.